The sun was just beginning to rise over the dusty Nevada hills when Tom Walker stepped out onto his front porch, a hot mug of coffee in one hand and his dog Scout's leash in the other. He took a long sip, squinting at the golden hue settling over his new neighborhood, Elm Ridge Estates. Quiet, neat, and picture perfect. The kind of place that made him think, finally, peace. Tom was 43, a Gulf War veteran with a service record full of honor and scars to match. He'd spent most of his adult life moving between bases and deployments. When he retired last spring, he knew exactly what he wanted. A home where he could breathe, garden, and enjoy the sound of silence. The house he bought had a wide natural lawn, not like the fake neon green turf patches his neighbors seemed obsessed with. Real grass, soft and imperfect, just the way he liked it. Scout, a scruffy Labrador mix, pulled eagerly at the leash, sniffing the air. "Relax, buddy," Tom chuckled. "We've got all day." As they strolled along the sidewalk, Tom couldn't help but notice how uniform everything looked. Like a suburban theme park. Identical mailboxes, identical roof lines, even identical flower pots. Something about it felt sterile. When they returned, a small white envelope was tucked into the slats of his front door. It had a glossy seal with gold lettering, Elm Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. Tom raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected to hear from them so soon. He had read the HOA packet during closing. Dense legal jargon, vague rules, lots of emphasis on community standards. Nothing he couldn't handle. He opened the envelope. Notice of violation. Property address, 143 West Mulberry Drive. Violation code 4.7.2. Lawn maintenance, non-compliance. Description. The front yard of your property has been deemed non-compliant with community landscaping standards. Action required. Please resolve the issue within 10 days. Failure to comply may result in fines and further action. Contact the HOA board for clarification if needed. Tom stared at the letter, confused. He looked out at his lawn. It was green, mowed, not a single weed in sight. Maybe it was a mistake. He called the number at the bottom of the letter. It went to voicemail. 2 days later, he received a second notice. This one taped to his garage door like some kind of public shaming. This is your second and final warning. You are now subject to a $100 administrative fine. Tom was livid. He spent the afternoon walking the neighborhood, comparing lawns. His was arguably nicer than most. A few even had brown patches or sparse coverage, but none had plastic turf, except the house directly across the street. That house below. Tom marched across the street and knocked. After a few seconds, Barry answered. "Hey there, Tom. What can I do for you?" Barry said, smiling the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I got 2 warnings about my lawn and a $100 fine. Just trying to understand why," Tom said evenly. Barry chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, the board received a couple of complaints. The lawn looks a little wild, not exactly up to our community aesthetic." "Aesthetic?" Tom repeated. "It's grass, it's trimmed, there's no debris, no weeds, it's healthy." Sure, Barry said, stepping outside and pointing at his own flawless synthetic turf. "But here in Elm Ridge, we try to go for a unified look. Many homeowners are upgrading to artificial to cut water use." Tom crossed his arms. "The guidelines don't say artificial turf is required. In fact, they mention it's optional." Barry nodded, still smiling. "Yes, optional, but preferred. Look, no one wants a conflict here. Just bring it up to standard and we'll all move on." Tom walked away. Bring it up to what standard, he thought. That night, he went through the HOA rules with a highlighter. Nowhere, not once, did it say that natural grass was prohibited or even discouraged. All it said was that lawns had to be maintained, presentable, and in harmony with surrounding homes. His was. Absolutely. The next morning, Tom sent an email to the HOA requesting clarification and a full list of any specific issues. He attached high-resolution photos of his lawn. He got no reply. By the following week, the fine had increased to $300. Now the notices were being sent via certified mail. That's when Karen knocked on his door. She was in her early 60s, silver-haired, and wore gardening gloves caked in soil. She held a mason jar of homemade lemonade. "I heard about your lawn trouble," she said, eyes narrowed. "I had to come over." Tom invited her in. Karen sat at the kitchen table and sighed. "My son and his wife lived 3 blocks over, had a similar run-in. The board started hitting them with fines over a backyard shed. Said it was the wrong paint color. They lost the house, Tom." Tom's stomach dropped. "Wait, the HOA took their home?" "Foreclosed on it," Karen said grimly. "Sold it in an auction. They were only 90 days behind on fines. The board called it a legal reclamation process." Tom sat back in his chair, stunned. Karen leaned forward. "They don't like pushback, but you strike me as the kind of guy who won't roll over."
Over the next few days, Tom went into full documentarian mode. He bought a DSLR camera and took daily time-stamped photos of his lawn. He started recording every interaction. Phone calls, letters, emails. He even installed a Ring camera on his front door. He mowed the lawn twice a week, trimmed the edges with a fine blade, and added fresh mulch to the flower beds. It was pristine. Still, the fines kept arriving. $500, $750, $1,100. The tone of the letters changed. More aggressive, more legalese. He was being willfully non-compliant, they claimed. Repeated disregard for community guidelines. Tom tried to attend the next HOA board meeting, held at the community clubhouse. He sat in the front row. When his turn came to speak, Barry refused to let him address the lawn issue, citing pending enforcement action. When Tom insisted, Barry motioned to the off-duty sheriff deputy hired as security. "Mr. Walker, please take your seat or exit the premises," the deputy said. Tom left, but not quietly. "You want a fight?" he said, staring down Barry. "You just picked the wrong guy." The next morning, a thick envelope arrived via courier. It was a notice of intent to place lien. If the fines were not paid within 30 days, the HOA would initiate proceedings to place a lien on Tom's property, the first step toward foreclosure. Tom stood on his porch, the letter shaking slightly in his hand. Scout curled at his feet. All over a lawn, not a dead tree, not a broken fence, not some eyesore, a healthy living lawn. He looked around at the quiet street. Sprinklers chirped to life. A plastic flamingo turned slowly in the breeze across the street. He exhaled slowly. This was no longer about grass, it was about control. And Tom Walker had just decided he wasn't going anywhere. Tom stared at the lien notice for what felt like an hour. The language was cold, clinical, like they were describing a spreadsheet instead of threatening to take his home. The letter cited non-compliance, failure to resolve the issue within outlined timeframes, and daily accrued penalties totaling $3,450. They were giving him 30 days to pay, or else. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Tom met with Danielle Ortiz, a sharp, fast-talking attorney in Reno who specialized in real estate and HOA litigation. She was younger than Tom expected, maybe early 30s, but her reputation was solid. Several online reviews praised her for crushing rogue HOA boards like soda cans. Danielle flipped through the file he'd brought, the violation letters, photos, emails, and videos. After 20 minutes, she looked up. "This is bull." "Exactly," Tom said. "You've maintained your lawn. It's healthy. There's no objective violation here." She tapped the letter. "They're using ambiguous language to create pressure. This feels less like a maintenance issue and more like a power play." "They're trying to force me to conform or leave," Tom said. "Or make a profit off your property through foreclosure," Danielle added. "There's a history of that in this state. Some HOAs act like miniature governments, unchecked and unregulated." Danielle leaned back, thinking. "Did you know the HOA president, Barry Faulkner, owns a landscaping company?" she asked. "No," Tom said, frowning, "but it wouldn't surprise me. He's got contracts with at least 5 other HOAs in the region. All of them push artificial turf as a community standard. Guess what company they recommend?" Tom's jaw clenched. Danielle smiled grimly. "Welcome to the HOA racket." Back in Elmridge, tensions escalated. A letter appeared on Tom's door with "Final Notice" stamped in red. "Your continued refusal to comply jeopardizes property values for the entire community. We urge you to take corrective action immediately to avoid legal consequences." His lawn remained perfect, trimmed, watered, and documented. Still, he was portrayed as the neighborhood villain. The neighbors began to split into factions. Some whispered encouragement as he passed by. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Then, one day, a neighbor named Greg Benson, who lived 2 houses down, knocked on Tom's door. Greg was in his 50s, wore carpenter jeans and a trucker hat. He worked maintenance at the school district. "You got a minute?" he asked. Tom nodded. "I've been fined too, twice, for my mailbox post being slightly tilted." Greg held up a violation letter, eyes flashing with anger. "They're running a game here. Everyone I talk to is either terrified or already paid up."
Tom nodded. "Then it's time to hit back," Danielle filed a formal complaint with the Nevada Ombudsman for Owners in Common Interest Communities, a state office that oversees HOAs. At the same time, she sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA board demanding a stop to the escalating fines and a reversal of the lien. The response came swiftly and nastily. A new letter from the HOA accused Tom of harassment, citing his attempts to speak at the HOA meeting and warned that legal action could be taken for disruptive behavior. They called him a security risk. Tom read the letter aloud to Scout. "They're trying to flip the script," he muttered, "make me the aggressor." He walked outside to inspect his lawn again. It was immaculate. He even measured the grass blade height, exactly 2.5 inches. A sprinkler clicked on across the street. Barry Faulkner stood on his own porch, arms crossed, watching. Tom stared back. The war was no longer about grass, it was personal. The following week, Danielle dug deeper and found a pattern that shocked even her. The HOA's financial statements, which all members were legally entitled to see, showed that over 30% of annual revenue came from enforcement-based fines and liens. That's not normal. Even worse, Barry's landscaping company, Greenscape Solutions, had been paid over $82,000 in the last fiscal year to remedy non-compliant lawns. That figure alone exceeded the HOA's annual budget for road repairs and security combined. "This is a classic conflict of interest," Danielle said. "He's creating violations, enforcing them, and then profiting off the fix. It's racketeering in all but name." They filed a civil lawsuit, Walker versus Elm Ridge HOA, alleging fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment, and retaliation. But the HOA wasn't backing down. They hired a large law firm out of Las Vegas and countered with a motion to foreclose, arguing Tom's unpaid fines had surpassed $4,200 and that he was a habitual violator. They included a packet of cherry-picked photos showing his lawn yellowing and inconsistent trimming, all heavily filtered or taken from odd angles. Tom's real photos painted a different picture. So did the drone footage he'd commissioned from a local college student, which showed a lush uniform lawn in 4K clarity. "This is going to court," Danielle said. Tom nodded. "Good, let's put them on trial." As court day approached, the pressure grew. Tom's mailbox was vandalized. Someone spray-painted HOA trash on his driveway in the middle of the night. Police were called, but nothing came of it. News crews began circling. A local NBC affiliate ran a short segment titled "Veteran Faces Foreclosure Over a Lawn," featuring Tom and clips of his property. The video went viral. Over 1.2 million views, thousands of comments. This is what happens when Karens run the government. I'd rather live in the woods than in an HOA neighborhood. Stand strong, Tom. You're fighting for all of us. Suddenly, Tom wasn't just some retiree in a turf dispute. He was a symbol. Danielle received a tip from a whistleblower, an anonymous email from someone inside the HOA. The message included screenshots of private communications between Barry Faulkner and the rest of the board. Get rid of Walker, or the whole system unravels. Too many are watching. Make him look unstable. Force a foreclosure. That'll shut them all up. That changed everything. Danielle filed a motion for discovery and the court granted it. Emails, contracts, internal memos, all of it would be reviewed. The HOA's arrogance had left a trail, and now it was admissible in court. Tom sat on his porch that evening watching Scout chase shadows across the lawn. A new sense of calm settled over him. Not peace, but purpose. The board had tried to fine him into submission, threaten him into silence, paint him as a problem, but he wasn't backing down. They could take his money, they could try to take his home, but they couldn't take the truth. And they couldn't stop what was coming next.
The courtroom was colder than Tom expected. Not physically, the air was fine, but something about the fluorescent lighting and the pale walls made it feel sterile, almost indifferent, like a machine built for slow, grinding judgment. Tom sat beside Danielle at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a navy blazer and pressed khakis. She wore a grey suit, hair tightly pulled back, confidence radiating off her like armour. Across the room sat Barry Faulkner and his legal team, two expensive-looking attorneys from a Las Vegas firm who never made eye contact with Tom. The trial was set for 2 days. The judge, Honourable Marjorie Hall, was known for being strict and by the book. Danielle had warned Tom, "She's fair, but you better come with receipts." They had receipts. The first day began with opening statements. The HOA's attorney, a slick man named Ridley Groves, painted Tom as a hostile homeowner, claiming he had ignored multiple opportunities to bring his lawn into conformity and had rallied community unrest with unfounded accusations. Danielle stood next. She didn't raise her voice, didn't gesture wildly. Instead, she walked the judge through a quiet, methodical timeline. Tom Walker's lawn has been in compliance with every guideline outlined in the Elm Ridge Estates CCRs, she said. What is not compliant is how the HOA has used vague language, inflated fines, and self-dealing to financially exploit residents. She held up a printed email. "Here's what this case is really about," she said, reading aloud. "Get rid of Walker or the whole system unravels." The courtroom went silent. The next witness was Karen, Tom's neighbor and one of the few willing to testify. She was calm, but her voice trembled slightly. "I watched Tom mow that lawn twice a week. It was healthier than mine. They kept fining him for things that didn't exist." The HOA's attorney cross-examined harshly. "You have a personal friendship with Mr. Walker?" "We're neighbors." "Do you have a bias?" Karen smiled thinly. "I have a memory." The following testimony came from Danielle's secret weapon, Mike Brenner, a former HOA board member who had resigned the previous year. He took the stand wearing a rumpled button-down and looked visibly uncomfortable. Danielle approached. "Mr. Brenner, can you tell us why you resigned?" Mike hesitated. Then, "I couldn't be part of it anymore." "Part of what?" "The way Barry ran things. He'd push fake violations, tell us to ignore people's appeals. He made money off every fit."
Danielle had uncovered a trove of emails between Barry and Greenscape Solutions, his landscaping company. One email read, "Get him on turf code 3.9. I can fix it in 2 days. Quoted high, 6K or more. If he won't pay, we lien him. Easy win." The judge's eyebrows lifted. Danielle wasn't finished. She displayed financial statements showing that over 42% of HOA revenue in the past 2 years came from enforcement fines, nearly $210,000. Barry's company had received over $160,000 in payments during that same period for repairs and compliance landscaping. "Is it fair to say," Danielle asked, "that Mr. Faulkner profited from the very violations he enforced?" The courtroom gasped. Barry's attorney objected again. This time the judge sustained, but the damage was done. During cross-examination, Barry himself took the stand. He looked uncomfortable for the first time. Danielle approached slowly. "Mr. Faulkner, do you consider yourself a fair administrator of HOA policy?" "Absolutely." "Do you believe your actions have always been in the best interests of the community?" "Yes." Danielle pulled up a photo of Tom's lawn. "This photo, taken 2 days before your final violation notice, is this what you consider unacceptable?" Barry hesitated. "It's not uniform. It's natural grass. There's a preference." "Is it in the guidelines?" "No." "Did Mr. Walker have any dead grass?" "No." "Weeds?" "No." "Were the rules applied equally to all homeowners?" "Yes." Danielle tapped on another photo. It showed a different house, clearly with dead patches of grass, tall weeds, and a broken sprinkler head. This property received no violations in the same 30-day period. Barry looked trapped. I wasn't aware." "Who issued Tom's violation?" "I did." "Who decided the fines?" "The board." "Who runs the board?" Barry didn't answer. Danielle let silence hang in the air. After the recess, Judge Hall requested closing statements. Tom watched Danielle walk to the center of the courtroom. She didn't hold up evidence this time. She didn't raise her voice. She simply looked at the judge and said, "This isn't just about a lawn. It's about abuse of power. About a system that punishes people for not falling in line. Mr. Walker served this country to protect our freedoms, and now he's here, defending his right to live in peace. That should matter." Then she sat down. 2 days later, the judge issued.
Most damningly, she referred the matter to the State Attorney General for further investigation into financial misconduct and fraud. Tom didn't cry, but for the first time in months, he allowed himself to exhale. He had won. That evening, the community held a spontaneous gathering on the cul-de-sac. Dozens of neighbors came, some bringing beer, others cupcakes. Greg Benson brought a homemade banner that read, "Welcome home, Tom." Karen brought Scout a new chew toy. Barry Faulkner didn't show up. In fact, 2 days later, he resigned from the HOA board, along with 2 other members. A special election was called for the following month. Danielle showed up late, smiling. "You made the news again," she said, holding up her phone. HOA lawsuit hero exposes corruption. Judge slams board's abuse of power. Tom laughed.
He'd never wanted attention, never wanted a fight, but he got both, and he hadn't backed down. The next morning, Tom stood on his porch with Scout at his feet and coffee in hand. The lawn shimmered under the early sun, real, imperfect, beautiful, and free. The special election was held under heavy scrutiny. A third-party election management company oversaw the ballots. Cameras were installed at the clubhouse. Every homeowner received a double-verified voting code and a full candidate list. Tom Walker didn't intend to run. At least, not at first. He wasn't a politician. He hated meetings. He didn't like bureaucracy. But when his mailbox filled with handwritten letters from neighbors, people he barely knew, urging him to be their voice, he started to reconsider. One note from a single mother on Mulberry Lane stood out. "You stood up when no one else could. If you don't run, they'll just replace one Barry with another." Tom filed his candidacy form the next day. Election night felt like a high school assembly. Neighbors gathered in lawn chairs across the clubhouse parking lot, a projector showing real-time vote counts on the brick wall. When the final tally came in, Tom had secured 78% of the vote. Greg Benson and Karen were both elected to board seats alongside him. The HOA's new leadership was entirely made up of people who had once been fined, threatened, or ignored. It wasn't just a change of guard, it was a revolution. Tom's first order of business as president, transparency. He proposed the Homeowner Bill of Rights, a simple, readable set of protections for all residents, clear violation definitions with photo evidence, maximum fine caps, independent third-party inspections, a formal neutral appeal process, mandatory conflict of interest disclosures for all board members. The proposal passed unanimously. Tom also moved HOA meetings to the local community park instead of the clubhouse, making them family-friendly and open air, with free coffee and donuts, no more hiding behind closed doors. Danielle Ortiz, while no longer actively litigating, offered to help the new board build a long-term compliance system. She helped them draft contracts that separated enforcement from repair services, ensuring no future board member could profit off fixing their own violations. At the next meeting, Tom addressed the crowd. "I didn't ask for this role," he said. "I just wanted to keep my lawn. But I realized something. It was never about the grass. It was about whether people like us, normal people, still have a say in how we live." He paused. "Well, now we do." The story didn't end at Elm Ridge. Tom's legal victory triggered a chain reaction. Local media followed up with a multi-part series titled HOA Tyranny, The Silent Epidemic, using Tom's case as the headline. They highlighted dozens of other Nevada residents with eerily similar experiences. Fines for fence heights, driveway cracks, even decorative wreaths. Soon, other homeowners reached out to Tom for advice. He started a small nonprofit, LAWN, Legal Aid for Wronged Neighbors. Danielle joined as a volunteer advisor. Together, they helped over 200 homeowners challenge improper fines, overturn liens, and even remove board members abusing power. One elderly couple in Arizona called Tom after watching his interview on YouTube. Their HOA had fined them for feeding birds in their backyard. Tom helped connect them to legal help. They sent him a Christmas card that year with a handwritten note. "Our birds say thank you." Barry Faulkner didn't disappear quietly. He attempted to sue Tom for defamation, claiming the trial destroyed his business. The court dismissed the case with prejudice. Then the Nevada Attorney General's office launched a formal investigation into Barry's financial dealings across multiple HOA boards. Within 6 months, Barry was indicted for fraud, falsifying financial records, and unlawful enrichment. He faced up to 10 years in prison. Tom never attended the trial. He said all he wanted was for justice to be done, not revenge. 2 years later, Elm Ridge looked the same, and completely different. The mailboxes were still matching. The houses still lined up like Monopoly pieces. The lawns were still green, real and artificial alike. But the tone had changed. Kids played on sidewalks. Neighbors smiled longer. People spoke up without fear of retaliation. Tom had quietly stepped down from the board after one term, choosing to return to a quieter life. He still attended the occasional meeting, usually in the back row, sipping from a thermos, while Scout lay beside him. One Saturday morning, Tom stood in his garage, polishing an old army medal that had collected dust for years. Greg stopped by, holding a folder. "Got another letter," he said, grinning. "Someone from Florida this time. Wants advice." Tom chuckled. "Tell them we're not legal advisors. We already did. They still want to talk to you." Tom looked at Scout, then at the folder. "Let's help them," he said. "That's what we do now, right?" Greg nodded. "HOA Avengers?" Tom laughed. "I like that." Later that afternoon, Tom sat on the porch. Scout lay in the sun. Birds chirped. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut, real grass. Tom took a long breath and thought about everything that had happened. The fines, the threats, the courtroom, the neighbors who stood with him, the strangers who sent letters. It had all started with a simple patch of lawn. And now it was a symbol, a patch of earth that reminded people they still had a right to their homes, their voices, and their lives.